Estamos aqui com ninguém menos que Shane Orr, dos principais coaches da atualidade. Ele é coach não apenas das duas pessoas mais condicionadas do mundo, Clair-Toomey e Matt Fraser, mas ele também assumiu agora o papel de coach de Alex Smith e Brooke Wells, e também tem o próprio esquema dele de treinos que você pode contratar, que é o Proven Fitness. Então nós vamos tratar sobre todos esses assuntos agora com ele. Para quem não sabe, ele está lá, são 7h30 da manhã, ele está na Coreia do Sul, né? E topou dar essa entrevista para a gente. So, thank you so much, Shane, and welcome to our podcast, the Hugo Cross Podcast and YouTube channel.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this. I know we've been planning this for many weeks now. I'm just glad we could finally make it happen.
Yeah, I'm really glad we can finally make it happen also. Now, Shane, let me start by, saying something that, you're known as Tia's husband or Tia's coach, and more recently, the coach of the two fittest person in the world, like Tia Clair-Toomey and Matt Fraser. But I want to start this interview by asking, who is Shane Orr? I mean, what's your story, and how do you become a CrossFit coach?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Like my journey into coaching has certainly became about organically. This wasn't something I set out early on to be, like a world coach, or to even obviously pursue CrossFit games in a whole. Early on, when Tia and I first started our relationship, we've always been included into some form of fitness related. So Tia used to do track and field. And it all actually began back in the track and field days, where I would assist her with her track, and I'd just start by just holding the stopwatch and pressing stop start whenever she wanted me to do that, whenever she did any of her intervals. And then slowly and organically, that role just changed. Then we with track and field, and then we started with CrossFit, and then we did weightlifting, and then we just started progressing forward there. I will say, though, that I've always had an interest in exercise science and, like human performance, and just being intrigued by that. But I actually began my working career in the mines back in Australia. So I used to work in the mines, and then after work, I'd go to a Globo gym and work the front desk there, and just have a few mentors and just quiz them about human performance. And that's how I've always been intrigued, but I never thought I'd be where I am today with you guys.
So you never thought about being a coach, but I mean, your career and Tia's kind of are mixed together in a way that you became her coach, and now you're coach of major athletes. Is that right? So
yeah. So exactly that. Like it was just our journey that's taken us to this point here, and we again, like, even our relationship with Fraser was organic. We moved to Tennessee, Cookville, and he reached out to Tia, said, "Hey, do you want a training partner?" And we're like, "Matt Fraser? Of course we want a training partner of Matt Fraser. That sounds like less work, physical work for me, and more watching for me." So it worked out really well in that sense. And again, that came about by organic relationship. We just really were fixated on what we were doing, and then fortunately enough, we found ourselves around the right people.
And how did you and Tia met? I mean, how did you and Tia meet? Sorry. How did you become couple?
Yeah. That's a long story as well. And I think Tia can give a better version than that. But essentially, the first time I laid eyes on her was at a triathlon. I was in a team triathlon, and she was doing an individual, believe it or not. And anyway, she came out of the pool leg, or the swim leg first. And then that's when I saw her, because my first leg would have been the bike ride. So I saw her, she got on the bike, and she rode away. So my whole objective in the triathlon changed from trying to place really well on the bike to find Tia in the bike. So that's when we first met. Yeah. She beat me, just so you know as well.
But that is a good story. And is it hard to coach your own wife? I mean, because you spend your entire day together training, and then you go to the same house, and basically you're both you leave the same place at all times. How hard is that, or it's not hard at all?
I mean, sure, there's some difficulties in it, but I think that's with anything, you know. Even if I hardly saw her, I think I think the difficulty. Sorry, I thought the difficulties would be there, but you know, essentially, like, and it may say cliche, but when you're looking for a wife, you want it to be your best friend, where you want to spend every living moment with them, essentially. So I'm just fortunate that our relationship and I guess our professions require us to be together. So for me, that's, you know, like, that's what I've been chasing in a relationship, and unfortunately enough, we get to chase it on a large scale as well. But there is complications, I guess, when you start looking at the nitty gritty with coaching and obviously relationship. You know, you got to draw this line in the sand. Once you leave that gym, you got to switch off, change hats, so to speak, and then you got to become a husband and you know, and be involved in that too.
Have you ever said something like, no, you give the orders in the house, I give the orders in the gym?
Yeah, we have those conversations a lot. You know, even at home, I'm like, oh, T, do you think you should be eating that? We've got a competition next month. But no, it's I get in trouble. I get reminded where my place is every now and again, so it's good. I get humbled.
Okay, that's good. Now, I want to talk a little bit how you prepare your athletes.
Yep.
First of all, when we first met Tia and you, it was in the CrossFit Games 2015, right? When she actually
Yep.
got second place, 15 or 16?
15, yeah.
Yeah, where she got second place there. And in that CrossFit Games, in the documentary, when they barely filmed her and said, no, there is no use following me, you see that she didn't really have her mindset like said, I'm going to be a great athlete. Now, I don't know if that was your first experience with a CrossFit Games athlete or not as a coach, but how did that change, and how do you prepare nowadays mentally your athletes for coming the best version of themselves?
Yeah, I think that's a strong question as well, and I like this one. So as our first year at the CrossFit Games, we never put any expectations on results. It was more about, look, wow, we made it to the CrossFit Games. Everything else is a bonus. So seeing that play out in front of us, you know, like when we went there in 2015, the goal was, you know, Teal, Jake, and Lee, in between us would just go, I just don't want to come last. Cool. So the benchmark for us was don't come last. And that was the conversations I always had. So I learned a lot as a coach as well. Like the dialogue or the conversations I was having was certainly not, I learned a lot from that experience as well. So I would reinforce her by saying, yeah, don't come last. And I know now that's certainly not what I want to say to an athlete of any caliber or anybody anyway. So so after day one, she wasn't coming last, and we're like, fantastic, you know, you're in the top half of the field. So then we're like, cool, new goal, stay in the top half of the field. So again, anyway, when Tia came second in 2015, we felt like that was astounding, and obviously astounding result. We were so surprised, so shocked. Tia was overwhelmed, obviously. But you know, when we think back to a lot of those conversations and obviously what the cameras were bringing towards us, there was two things to be factored in. Obviously, being Australian, there's a lot of sarcasm in what we say. You know, we downplay a lot of our performances just to have that larrikin or that funny feel. And the second thing is that, you know, she there was a part there where she felt like she didn't belong there. She felt like she was just happy to be there and thought that other women deserved to have the spotlight of the camera. She was still trying to make a name for herself where others had made names and they deserved the airtime, so to speak. And but what I will say, in 2016, when she got second again, that second felt like last place. Having that low point, having that happen in 2016 was for me, even to this day, like it, you know, like it's my lowest point too. I look back at that moment and go, I never want that to be repeated again. To see her walk off there mortified, destroyed by coming the first loser. We made a pact there like that would never happen again. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that never gets repeated again. And I still look at that moment to this day and go, right, I'm not making that happen again. So I use that as my motivation, and I know she uses that as her motivation. So it's still strong and passionate in the back of our minds of where we don't want to be, if that makes sense.
Is that because in 2016 you guys were prepared, like, I know I belong, I know I'm the best? I mean, what changed in the preparation from 2015 to 2016 mentally, and what changed in 2017? I mean, you said now from 2016 to 2017, you said, right, it was my low point and I want to change that. Yeah. But what changed on 2015, 2016 from it's great to be second, it's the worst feeling in the world? I mean,
yeah. So I think you nailed that. It's just that Tia wanted to prove that she belonged at the CrossFit Games. So she obviously had to back up her performances, get back to the CrossFit Games. And even she set the bar too low in her mind as well. She just said, look, I just want to prove that I belong here. She never put expectations, or she put a lot of thought in about being amongst the top athletes, not necessarily rising above the top athletes. And I know that even after that year, there was a lot of conversations between her and I. Even for myself, I did a lot of research and understanding of what I can certainly do better, because I knew that she was certainly upset about that result. That I started looking at the communication methods as a coach, and then asking myself what I can do better to help her perform better at the CrossFit Games or as an athlete. So some of the small things that I'm happy to share is that just the words of the communication that I use. So for instance, I want to highlight the good out of an athlete rather than highlight the negative. So for instance, when I looked at 2015, I'd say, don't come last, as opposed to just push and do your best. So what I'm doing is I'm highlighting the worst case scenario, bringing attention to the bad, rather than trying to allow her to strive for the best. And I'm just conscious that with like even technique on a day-to-day basis, where if we're doing like snatch progressions or anything snatch related, I will highlight a positive in her lift and try better word areas which need improvement. So for instance, I'd say, Tia, your turnover or your catch position, your snatch was phenomenal. Let's put more emphasis now on the drive phase of your snatch. Rather than in 2015, I would have said, Tia, come on, you got to push with those legs. Come on, you got strong legs, you got to push with the legs. You know, I had to retrain myself and then keep looking for the positive, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's actually a great tip for coaches everywhere. And you also in 2016, you follow her to the Olympics. Now, did you coach? Was your place as a coach in the Olympic Games, right?
Yeah, so Rio. I think that, in Rio. So that was another juggle in 2016 as well. After the CrossFit Games, Tia then would compete at the Olympics 10 days after. So that brought in a lot of extra preparation and stuff as well, leading to the CrossFit Games. So Tia had to do a weight cut to make sure she was under the 58 category. My role in that was I was just assisting the head coach for the Australian team, Miles Weidel, and that my pass would allow me to go to the training halls and be a part of that and have day passes for the athlete access and everything like that. But unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to be there in the actual event, so I had to sit in the grandstands and watch from afar. But yeah, that was an incredible experience as well, and that brought a lot of learnings as well, which helped then reshape 2017 as well. But it was a very intense 3 months. We were very much putting a lot of volume to our weightlifting and neglecting some aerobic pieces. I know now that I look back at it for the 2016 Games preparation.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine that. And then you moved to Cookville, right? Where you had to train with, you had the Mayhem crew and Rich Froning, and then Matt Fraser. How did that idea to move to Cookville came about? And now you're moving out of Cookville And we're going to talk about that later. But first, let's start about talking about how you moved to Cookville.
Yeah. So what happened was after 2017 and 2018, we lived in Australia. It wasn't until the end of 2018 we decided to move to the States. So when we were deciding where to move, we were trying to think about environment, where we wanted to be. We were trying to think about obviously the location, the convenience of getting to East Coast, West Coast, even traveling to Europe. We wanted to be accessible to a lot of sponsors, so hence why we moved to the States. But why Tennessee or Cookville came about was that we'd been to Cookville multiple times prior to this, and we built a lot of relationships there. So that when you're thinking about moving to the other side of the world, it's quite daunting thinking, have I made the right move, so to speak? So on our short list, we had San Diego, we had obviously Tennessee, Cookville. I think we had Chicago. Anyway, we were trying to pick areas that were very, very accessible so that we could fly around. But we kept coming back to Cookville because we absolutely loved the reception we had there with the community there. Like, the people in Cookville are phenomenal. They're so supportive. They opened up their homes for us. They gave us a car to start with. They made our transition, or made it very easy for us to pick up and move to the other side of the world. So we're very fortunate for that. And again, talking about that location, it was quick to get to the East Coast and it's quick to get to the West Coast. So bouncing and factoring all of them things made the decision a lot easier.
Okay, and then you moved to Cookville and you started training her. She already won the first CrossFit Games in 2017.
Yeah.
And then you said, like, Matt asked to be her training partner. And then you started training Matt also a little bit later on.
Yeah.
So how did that came about? Said that it was organically something that was that arose between them. And how did that the chemistry between the two of them help them grow as an athlete?
Yeah. So what I'll say was Matt reached out because he spent 6 months in Cookville and he'll spend the other 6 months in his hometown in Vermont. So he was at the end of his stage in Vermont and he just called up Tia and said, "Hey, I heard you moved to Cookville. I would love to train with you." And we were like, "This is amazing. Let's 100% make this happen." So that he started training with us just for a little bit. So for instance, if we had like 7 pieces in that day, he'd just join in 2 or 3 pieces. And then as the days progress and the weeks progress, it went from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, then 5 to 6. And then before we knew it, he was just there from the start to the finish. And I credit Matt for that. He's very adaptable as well. Like he has a lot of trust. When you get his trust, you have his full trust. And so then that's what I think was a process for us both looking back as well. So that Matt showed his trust in what Tia and I were doing. We built relationships there, and then he started getting himself submerged or involved completely into what we were trying to do there. Matt then went to Dubai. I guess that would have been for the start of the 2019 season or the end of 2018. Anyway, he went out there, and that's when we started having a lot of conversations back and forth internationally as well. So I would say that was started before the Dubai competition. Maybe 3 months prior to that was sort of the time span of when Matt started talking about characters and Matt and Tia and how they work together. I think that's, again, part of that learning phase of working together. We wanted to make sure that the chemistry was right as well, and that we could create this great dynamic. And Tia and Matt share a lot in common. They have the same big objectives each year to be standing on top of the podium at the CrossFit Games. So having that in common allowed them to push each other. And given that they're not versing each other like 2 males or 2 females, it allowed them to push further in training, and also to use each other's experiences to help complement each other as well. And I guess my job certainly was to navigate those relationships as well, and making sure that we create a healthy environment rather than a competing environment for training.
Yeah, and how hard That probably also very hard, because I mean, if they started competing each other, that's what I would think. It would make them almost to the verge of hurting themselves, because they really want to beat each other. So
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
something you have to control, right?
Yeah, so you're 100% right, and that's half the juggle as well, with having two highly competitive athletes in the same place. Obviously, they want to beat each other, but it's trying to, and they're phenomenal at this, and I got to credit for them for that as well, is that they know when it's training and they know when it's competing, and you see a big shift in that. You know when a competition's coming up as well, because it starts getting eerie in the gym, and they're putting a lot more energy and intention, and the focus is there as well. But I think that's also structuring the program so that you can reduce the environment of competition. So, for instance, we do a lot of EMOMs where they're very fixated on their own results rather than fixated against head to head. They'll start a minute behind each other, so they'd never really know what they're doing. They're just caught up in their own space. We do a lot of percentage work. So, for instance, if it was a workout, they would do 60% of their 1RM power snatch, do multiple reps of that, rather than going, okay, like 185, 125, or 135. Great, I know, this is the same weight, so to speak, so I should be beating her. No. It was based off their own level, and that we just created workouts so that they could focus on what they needed. And that was a challenge, but at the same time, it was really fun, because they would always 100% give their best effort day to day. So for that, knowing what they did on a daily basis it made me raise my bar, or my game, because if they're giving me 100%, damn, I'm not going to let them down. I'm going to give them 100% as well. So that would just require me to put a lot more effort in thinking about how I can make this environment that much better, how I can make them ready, prepared for the competition, or how I can make them the best version of themselves as well.
Yeah, that's actually my next question, because I'm
cool.
very interested about how hard it is for you to coach the best in the world, because they actually have practically no faults already, and they have won like 5 and 4 times the CrossFit Games. So you have to keep them motivated, and like they seem to be getting better and better every year. If you have an athlete with some faults, you can try, I'm going to work this. How hard it is to work with the best of the best.
Yeah, it's honestly, it was tough. I remember 2018 when this all came about with Fraser and T, and I was like, crap, like, man, I could either do really well here, or I could sink the ship bad. Like, these are real internal conversations I had, and again, on a day-to-day basis, I'd just go in there and we'd just focus on today, how we can maximize and utilize today to get the best out of it. And I credit these guys. They would just bring full trust and faith in what I was trying to produce, and that just allowed me to be more confident in what we were doing. And obviously, with how the season was formatted, there was a lot of sanctioned events. There was the CrossFit Open. As soon as an event was done or an open was done, we would then just look at the whiteboard and go, right, what do we need to fix? What do we need to work on? What's going really well? How can we be more prepared for the next competition? And these are the conversations we would have. And these are the real conversations. It's like, right, for Matt, I finished 3rd here. I need to be better. I finished 3rd in the world. I need to be better in this. It's like, wow, okay, let's do it. And same with Tia. These are the same conversations we were having. And we would just use past experience to help motivate or to learn from as well. So, we'd start looking back at the videos of the CrossFit Games performances in 2017, 2016, and looking at what happened there, and obviously try and execute in the next competition to make sure we never have any repeated bad performances.
And okay, but training Tia it's one thing, because you've known her like forever. You started CrossFit together. Training Matt, it's probably the different thing, because he was already a 2 or 3 time champion when you started training him. And how that was different in your head on how to deal with those two and programming for them.
Yeah, and again, I got to credit Fraser for this. He jumped into our training knowing that my training, the programming was dedicated or revolved around Tia. Fortunately enough, they have so much in common. He just fit in very well into our little bubble or our ecosystem, and then as we built a relationship, then I then started looking towards and seeing that he wanted to be more involved. I then looked towards what we can do to help complement him, and that was that Dubai competition. Knowing that event was coming up, I knew that it was cold in Tennessee, so we couldn't necessarily get out and do a lot of swimming and stuff like that. So we'd just go to a heated pool. We couldn't get out to a desert like they did the desert run. So we actually did a lot of simulations with like single skips, but on the spot. And we would just do like a 15-minute AMRAP of as many reps as we could. And then just to try to prime up the calves, get them prepared for the sand dune runs as well. So yeah. So I guess, again, coming back to that word organic, we started doing a lot of these things, just small things day to day. And before we knew it, we're more engrossed. And I think that's what's been a benefit or fortunate for us as well, is that we never looked too far ahead. We never thought, when we got together in 2018, we never thought 2019 CrossFit Games winning is the goal. I felt like that was very well established of what we're trying to create there. I think my objective was to make sure they were better than the athlete that won the previous year. So for instance, Tier 1 at 2017, so did Matt. So my goal was to make sure that they were better than their previous self. And that's how I look at it as well. And I use that as a measuring tool. I know what those athletes were doing leading into that event. And then we would use that, restructure that, and see if we can beat those old results and keep beating them. And then when I see that, I knew that they were prepared. They were better than the 2017 version. So that when we went to 2018, I knew that these guys were ready to rock and roll.
Okay, great.
Did I answer that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Matt is now, if I'm not mistaken, Matt's now 30 and Tia is 27.
Yep, 28.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, 28. Okay, and they're getting older, and there is a new generation coming. Like we just saw in this game, in the past game, to have Justin Medeiros and Haley Adams. So my questions actually are related to how do you intend to make them even better? I mean, or stay motivated when there is this new generation coming? And what do you think about this new generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a real conversation, or a real internal conversation a lot of coaches will have. And I will say the 2015, 2016 coach of myself would have thought 100% into this, thinking, but on the opposite scale, I'd have been thinking, oh, we're new at this, but look at all these other athletes. Like, you had your Camille, you had your Anna, you had, and obviously Katrin winning at that stage there. But, like I used to think, oh, look at them. They're amazing. They're a lot higher up, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I feel that I'm switching that now you can switch that now, and that's how they would perceive it. But really, I don't get submerged, or I don't think about what other competitors are doing. My objective is to make sure they're prepared, and to make sure Matt and Tia are prepared, not fixated on who's coming or what's coming. I think by doing that, by thinking of what other people are doing, is taking a lot of energy away from what you should be doing. I know reality is Instagram's not a real problem, but it's who doesn't get on social media and look at what other athletes are doing, and getting submerged by that. And then, I've got to remind myself that's a highlight reel. That's what you see when, like you want to post it because you enjoyed that, or that was a PB, or that was an amazing performance. And I'm happy for them. And I'm just I remove that thought and go, I don't get too overwhelmed about what X competitor is doing. I just get fixated on what we're doing. And it's hard. I got to really focus on, not to do their workouts and just trust what we're doing here. What we seem to be doing is working. And then I just got to keep reminding myself, put my attention to these guys, get them to be better than their last self. And I can guarantee myself that we'll be in a happier spot coming to CrossFit Games as well. But all that said as well, I'm very open-minded as well. I look at what other sports or disciplines are doing to help complement my athletes as well. And for instance, I look at what other coaches in the space are doing to help complement their athlete as well, and try to learn as well. You know, like I try to learn from what they're doing really well, and I try to learn from their mistakes as well. Yeah, I mean, just don't get submerged in what other people are doing. Focus on what you're doing.
That's also very important. I see a lot of athletes, especially in Brazil, they're always trying to, at least the athletes I've lived with or trained with, and they're always looking at each other and saying, "Oh, did you see that? Did you see that?" And making these small, how to say, pickerings about what they're doing, and that's actually a great tip. Let me ask you now another thing.
Yeah.
And I want an honest answer from you.
Okay, I'll try.
I know you're a coach. I know you're their coach, but and you and Tia particularly are very humble, or at least you seem to.
Yeah.
Do you think training Tia and Matt training together made them unstoppable? And let me reframe that. Can anyone nowadays beat them? Because I honestly, it's hard for me to imagine.
Look, what I will say is, I believe 100% if these guys keep putting the same effort in they do every day, no one will beat them, especially the environment, or especially the intensity they bring day to day and the professionalism that they bring day to day. My objective is to not let anyone ever beat them. As long as they want to compete, my objective is to make sure that they win every day, and they bring that same intensity each day. And for us, again, I'm just trying to speak truthfully here, or the best of what I believe in. But winning is not necessarily what we're chasing here. We're just making sure they're prepared better than what they were the previous competition. And, you know, and winning is a byproduct of that. And again, that's revolving around to what we're trying to create here, is that making sure these athletes are prepared and better than which they were the previous time they competed. And going off past trends, they won that one. So for instance, if I was to bet on them, I'm guaranteeing that they're going to win.
Okay. I would bet on them also. When I first prepared the questions and we started talking some months ago, right? It was actually prior to the games. I asked you about if you have any intention to train new athletes, and now you just announced that you're also training Brooke Wells and Alex Smith. So, Alex, and I want to know, how did that came about with those two, and what are your plans for them?
Yep, great question. I'd love to talk about this. So, at the end of last year, at the end of last year's CrossFit Games, we spent a lot of time with Brooke in our, what do you call it, our downtime or our immediately after the games. We went to this winery and we had a few days together, and we just started speaking a lot to it. And we had one of our great friends there as well. We had Todd. He was there, and he approached me and said, "Hey, like, I spoke to Brooke a lot, and you know, there's a lot of conversations on what she wants to do moving forward." And then I just said, "Look, I want what's best for Brooke, because based on the relationship which we had created, I'm happy to fly around and meet all these other coaches and then interview them and see what I can do, see and vet them and see what I think of them and have my opinion if she wants it." Anyway, so we started creating this list, and it started being a lot of back and forth between Brooke and I and Todd. And then before we knew it, and Tia was involved as well. And then we started having a lot of these conversations about, like, who should we go talk to see who could help Brooke be a better version of herself. So after a few conversations, and we started looking very closely at visiting some of these guys, someone suggested, "What about you coach her?" And then my first thought was, look, I'm going to be completely honest. I will be selfish, because I will gravitate towards helping Tia and Matt, because that's where my priority is and that's where my loyalty is. Because I said I will obviously help these guys because they gave me the trust first. And obviously they were very understanding of that, and they gave me full we're very transparent in those conversations. But then another day or two passed, and they said, what about instead of looking for a coach, you hire a coach and you mentor them to then assist Brooke? And then I sat on that for a day or two thinking, I'm not sure if this is what I want, or I don't want to spread myself out too thin. So then, I don't know, they twisted my arm and I started believing in it too. So then we put out an ad for a coach and asked if anyone wanted to work with our brand Proven and make sure that they obviously align with what we're trying to create here. So after an extensive period of time, we found a coach. They are now going to facilitate and work closely with Brooke, now Alec, and they're going to work closely with me. So we're going to separate results. We're going to talk programming structure-wise. We're going to talk about how to approach an event, what we're doing there as a coach, and how we can assist them, obviously. But we're going to remove placings or results in workouts particularly. And that's how we're creating that barrier so Brooke can have full faith that, hey, she's doing the same as Tia and Matt, but she doesn't necessarily know what they're getting. That doesn't help anybody knowing what they're getting. I mean, so sure it does for the short term or the long term. For the long term, but for the short term of doing the best you can do at training, that doesn't help them knowing what they're doing. So we're creating these barriers, but that said, we're creating a lot of communication back and forward about structuring programming wise as well. So again, we found someone for Brooke, and then Alec being in the same environment of space. And we think that he's got so much more potential to give. And so does Brooke. We think that this is so exciting to have these guys on board because we believe we can offer them a lot. So that given that these guys train together, we're trying to recreate what we have at Cookville and then give them the same opportunity to succeed as we did as well, or as what we had.
But it's not the same. I'm sorry. I don't know if I understood correctly. It is the same programming. They're doing the same programming as Matt and Tia, but Matt and Tia doesn't know how they went, and they don't know how Tia and Matt went.
Correct. For the most part, it's the same. The differences would be their weaknesses and strengths. And I don't like the word weaknesses, but I feel like that'll just be easy to communicate over. The areas to improve and strengths would be factored in. So for instance, if we look at a general day, so where we are currently, the guys are probably doing seven pieces a day, probably 3 or 4 in the morning and the rest in the afternoon, or they could do it all straight. I'd say 5 or 4 of those pieces are exactly the same as what we're doing in our little bubble, as they would do, but the other pieces would be dedicated towards them. So for instance, if they need to work on their aerobic game, bang, that's what they would do. If they need to work on swimming or any strength work, that's what they would do on those other 2 to 3 pieces. And that's what we're trying to create there.
Okay, so you work, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You work more closely with their coach. You hired their coach and you work more closely with their coach. That's true. That's
correct. Yeah. So we've just brought on Nick Johnston. So he lives in Knoxville. So he drives down to Nashville every weekend or every second weekend, spends a weekend with the guys, watches closely, writes obviously a lot of feedback. Then we discuss it, going, hey, like, these are the learnings that I just had. What he suggests we do, and obviously he's very educated in this area as well. So he proposed a lot of things, and then we'll just discuss a lot of it. And trust me, that gets me so excited when I'm talking about coaching and programming and strategies. I feel like that's what I love mostly about what we're doing is the process. Like the day-to-day conversations we have, or the day-to-day training. Like when we're in the world stage or the CrossFit Games or wherever we are, I pinch myself and go, wow, it was only 3 months ago we were just so dedicated day to day thinking about this moment. And I just love the process part of things. So to have another coach to bounce ideas off, honestly, for me, that's going to elevate it and excel my game. Knowing that he has faith in me as well, and that we're looking to make more athletes better, that generally excites me as well.
Yeah, that was something I actually, you're always talking about my next question, because I mean, for most of your career as a coach for Tia and Matt, you spent it on your own, right? It was you and your own thinking, and now you have another coach to work with. He's more focused on Alex and Brooke, but you have another coach to work with. How did that actually improve your programming, or is making you rethink things?
Yeah, so like again, like earlier on, I said I'm very open-minded about new trainings and new ways, and watching the sport evolve as well. So I'm very conscious of a lot of those things. So having another coach on board to suggest ideas or learnings that they had will just allow me to take bits and pieces or take a lot of that and implement it to our training, and vice versa. Talking about the methods or talking about what we've done or looking back at the documents or papers or spreadsheets or data that we've created and regurgitating that, talking about that again has brought a lot of focus going, I got to add that for next season because I liked when we did that. Or, we stopped doing this. Maybe this will be a great accessory to then help for the next season. So like a lot of those conversations already excite me because somehow they got lost in all the other new things we've created. And I want to bring them back. And hearing some of the things that he's done for his athletes in the past has allowed me to be excited about introducing that into our training as well. So Nick's been a phenomenal asset to us already. I love that we're able to communicate back and forth so easy, especially now that I'm in South Korea and he's in Tennessee. We'll get on the phone call a lot and just talk about just fun ways that, well, sorry, not fun. I think that's not accurate, but exciting ways that we can help these athletes be better versions of themselves. Yeah.
That's great. I'm sorry, I lost myself here in my questions. Yeah, I want to talk about proven fitness. I mean,
cool.
How do you started your program? Is it a program for elite athletes, and you have also for affiliate? How does that work? And if I want to, I don't know, buy something to get better, can I do that or something like that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So, so Proven came about last year. We had another platform, we had rebranded, restructured everything last year. At the moment, we offer three programs on Sugar WOD. We have a fitness track, which is like a 90-minute or shorter session of just minimal equipment, which will allow just people that want to just work on the fitness, get in the gym, hit the gym, and then leave quite soon after. And not necessarily training to compete at the CrossFit Games, just want to be healthy for longevity or for their family or for their kids. And I do a lot of that stuff. That's where I'm at right now. And then the other track is our compete track, is essentially based off what our elite athletes are doing at the games, like Tia, Brooke, Alec are now doing, and Matt doing. We put them into our programming. But what we do is that we will restructure a little bit. So these guys would have their own personal accessories. We will just remove that and just keep it a very generic program for them. So for instance, if they had 7 or 8 pieces a day, our compete track would have sometimes all of it, but it would have about 7 pieces a day or 6 pieces a day, which we think is the highest quality to complement that athlete without knowing them on a personal level. And then our third track, which we're just about to introduce, in fact, it starts on Monday, is our affiliate track. And we're looking at introducing that. And that's just obviously just going to be for all those affiliates that want to be a part of our brand. But what we've established on all of them, we've included options as well. So we've got 3 levels. We've got level 3, which is exactly what Tier would do. Level 2, what would be like what my capabilities would be, like just dialed back, allowed me to complete it. And then level 1 would be an aspiring athlete which wants to get to level 2, then to get to level 3, where these guys are. So our compete track is our most popular track, which a lot of people want to be involved with, which is phenomenal. And on the other side of the spectrum on our website, we also have ebooks that we have a squat training plan, which Tia used. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Commonwealth Games, but which she used there. We have a core program, just some generic programs, which I utilize because they'll be part of our accessories into our program as we lead into big events. Yeah. But yeah, so it's honestly overwhelmed. Sorry?
You have programs for everybody. I mean, everybody who wants to do something, you have a separate program for them.
That's our goal. We just obviously want to fast track people of what we've learned as well. Like I think Tia and I, we've come from a place where we didn't necessarily have everything, in a sense. We didn't have all the resources available. So we had to learn or recreate a lot of these environments or learn along the way as well. So we just want to help everyone get to, or fast track their progress as well. And from our learnings, we can help that as well. And I think, and unfortunately, I'm in a position where, like I can help service these guys or provide service of this as well. So I'm just very fortunate that, we get to do this, and I'm thrilled with it as well. It's been a lot of fun.
Great. Now, you said actually in your YouTube channel, you both are moving out of Cooksville now, right?
Yeah.
Do you know already where you're going? You're going back to Australia? Are you leaving Matt alone?
Yeah. So this is actually interesting. I started looking at some of the comments. Some people think we're going back to Australia. Some people think we're going to live in South Korea. Some people think we're going to Vermont, which would be a lot of fun. But what we're doing, we're leaving Cookville. We're going to look at two options at the moment. The first option will be Nashville, and the other option will be in Austin, in Texas. We want to spend a lot of time with Matt still, so we'll probably see ourselves going to Vermont to do a lot of training and stuff. And Matt will do a lot as well. He'll travel and be a part of us as well. I think where we're at right now is we're very dedicated to being involved or submerged in the South Korean tier, pursuing the bobsled. So we haven't put too much attention or too much focus on where we're going exactly. But you are right. We are leaving Cookville, and we're looking at two options: Nashville or Austin at the moment. How that's going to work for training environment?
I was betting on Nashville because of Brooke and Alec. But at the same time, you said they're not. They won't train together, right?
Yeah. So how we envision this is that we will do training camps together. We will get together. We'll spend weekends at times to work together. If we decide to move to Nashville, maybe once a week, we'll decide to have a dedicated day towards it, and then we'll train together. Because what I want to do is I want those athletes to be so fine-tuned on what they're capable of, rather than getting fixated on what the other guys are capable, and vice versa. Like I don't want what we've got happening at the moment with Tia and Matt to be submerged or thinking about those other guys, not and not the other way around as well, if that makes sense. So yeah, so we're still deciding on a lot of those factors as well. We don't know yet.
Okay. I'm gonna ask. I'm very afraid of asking this, and I don't want you to get mad at me or anything like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But is that moving out of Cooksville is anywhere related to what Fraser recently said on that podcast interview or not?
Yeah. No, it has nothing to do with that. I think what we're trying to do is we understand that we've got a limited time, with an athlete visa to be in the US. And I know Tia and I always consciously say we want to see more of the States while we're here. Unfortunately, we're in a position where we can move around and then try, and gyms are opening up their doors to allow us to train. And we're just finding ourselves now that we're halfway through our visa, and we want to see more of the States as well. And I think one thing is we've learned in COVID is that, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. We could be in another lockdown, or we could have another global pandemic, or we could have something going on. So we've just felt like while the opportunity is in front of ourselves, we want to try and see more of the States. And I know Nashville's just down the road from Cookville, but that then will allow us to have a shorter transport time to get to each ends as well. And we genuinely love Tennessee. We absolutely love the people there. We think the state is beautiful, and we have a lot of resources there.
They don't charge taxes on prices, right?
Yeah, Matt's taught us those. Matt's made us aware of that as well, and yeah, so that's another perk as well. But in fact, I think Texas has the same income tax policy as well. But but we've always loved Texas. I know Tia loves Texas. She loves the idea of saying that she lives in Texas. And we've heard a lot of cool stories, a lot of books where they say that Texans are the hardest people in the state. So we want to be submerged around some of them guys there. So they're some of the fun stories that we're looking forward to as well. But at the moment, we're loving South Korea and being submerged in this other world of bobsled, and in fact, seeing a lot of the Aussie guys, having conversations with them, and it's been a lot of fun so far. But we are genuinely excited for 2021 there. Oh, hang on, this year.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about this bobsled experience. I mean, she was asked by the Australian team, and you have James Newbury also there. So,
Yeah.
and the Open is coming up, and so how did that came about? I mean, this bobsled idea.
Yeah, so I think it was another learning from the pandemic. Tia got approached. I was going to say, what year is that? At the end of 2019, this idea of being a part of the bobsled team, and at first Tia said, "Oh, look, unfortunately, you know, I'm very dedicated on the 2020 season of the CrossFit Games. That's where I'm going to apply more energy." Anyway, the pandemic came about, and they fortunately, the timing worked out. They emailed or said, "Hey, would love you to be involved again. You know, we're restructuring our seasons, and there's a lot of opportunities there. Would you be inclined again?" And Tia and I were talking about it, and Tia was like, "You know what? I'm still dedicated towards this CrossFit. You know, this is where I want to put all my effort and apply my energy." And honestly, maybe about 7 days or 10 days as the pandemic started intensifying, Tia was like, "You know what? We're spending a lot of time here. Let's see what this bobsled requires us to do for the interim, and let's just see where it takes us." So they needed to do some testing because of the policies in Australia that they shut down the states. You weren't allowed to travel, so they didn't do a big camp where they would do a lot of testing. You were allowed to do it at your own gym and just had to send videos through. So they just required a lot of testing, like your 1 RM power clean, your 3 RM back squat, your static long jump, 15-meter sprint, 30-meter sprint. A lot of these like a combined test, like for the NFL. And we found ourselves thinking, well, these are a lot of similarities to what we already do with CrossFit. So let's just do that. So Rogue happened, and the last day to submit all your results was on the Monday. So Tia competed Rogue, and then the next day we went into the gym and just did all these qualifiers for the bobsled. Anyway, we just Tia submitted all those videos through, and fortunately enough, she made it to the shortlist of the Australian team. And then a lot of back and forth conversations, and obviously COVID playing a lot of this, because we were meant to actually go to the States, I believe. I know Europe was meant to be in Europe, but because of the COVID and the restrictions there, South Korea ended up being the best option. So anyway, we find ourselves here and we're just being submerged in it. So what's happening right now is we've got a 3 months worth of training camp here in South Korea, and doing a lot of the learnings and just obviously introducing ourselves to the sled and the sport itself, doing a lot of, we'd do 2 sessions. We'd do like a push session in the morning and a push session in the afternoon. And in the middle of the day, there'd be like there's like a simulated sprint track or ice track where they would do a lot of their starts. So we'd spend a lot of time in the middle of the day doing a lot of that. And at the night, the ladies would put a lot of like sliding videos on YouTube, and we'll do a lot of learnings there. So it's actually been very long days going through, just learning and learning. So I'm hoping in the next week or 2, we'll have a better structure of sort of dialing in individually on what Tia needs or what the other athletes need, and being a part of that. Yeah, so it's been fun.
So I guess that also the changing structure for the CrossFit Games also helped, because now she's not training CrossFit as much as she used to be, and now she has like this quarterfinals, 10% of the athletes. Now this was actually a good thing for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it worked out really well, especially that they pushed the Open back another couple of weeks, allowed us, because we're not going to enter. We're not going to go back to the States until the end of February, which would then leave us, I think, 2.5 or 3 weeks before the Open. So we'll get to acclimate and time zones readjust. So that will give us about 2 weeks to prime the body, get really CrossFit orientated, and get ready for the Open. Unfortunately, in the past, we would extend our off-season as long as we possibly could. So last year, I think it was 2 weeks out from the Open, Tia started training for the Open again. Does that make sense? So really, she started training for the 2020 season 2 weeks before the Open to then follow through that season. So we're going to try to recreate that. Fortunately, bobsled has a lot of similarities in the strength department. So we get to still go to a Globo gym and do a lot of our strength accessory work there. And we're still working on a lot of plyo style training, a lot of sled sprints, believe it or not. And then hopefully that will carry over into the Open. I mean, it's great. This is what we always do in an off season anyway. We try to submerge ourselves in a different realm or a different sport, you know. And for us, this is us sort of being open-minded or diverse in our training as well. So it's certainly, we've learned a lot. Tia has learned a lot of things of what she can do better now, and she even talks about it at night, going, we should do more of these now to help with our CrossFit. So for me, it's been a great experience so far.
And did you start also coaching as a physical trainer for all the other athletes in the team?
Yeah, we're trying to show them a CrossFit session or two at the end of our strength cycle. So we'll see, because as far as they're concerned, they only have to run 40 meters at a time. So we're trying to show them some of the other style of training, which we're doing. And I think it's working both ways. We're seeing what they do and they're seeing what we do. And I think it's been complimenting in that way, humbling in some ways.
And what do you think about the new structure of the season that was just released?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I haven't thought too much about it to around the games time. I've just been fixed on what it's going to bring for the Open period. So I see that they have announced the equipment list. I think that's phenomenal. As an affiliate owner in the past, we've known that it's quite hard to prioritize or quite hard to structure what the gym will look like every Friday for a workout. So knowing what we're in for equipment-wise will then allow affiliates to go, okay, well, I've only got 3 rowers. Knowing that they got rowers, we'll try to get another 2 before the Open, or all those things as well. That helps us as well, because especially where we are, we've fortunately reached out to some local CrossFit affiliates and they've provided us a rowing machine and a salt bike, which we're very fortunate of. So we've started including some rowing interval work now and getting back on the rower and stuff like that. So the Open seems to be, in my eyes, well structured. I'm not sure percentage-wise. 10% will go on to the next event. I'm not sure precise, and you may know more about this than I do. In that 10% is the entire leaderboard. Is it the 10% of the entire Open leaderboard go to the next stage, or is it from continent they take 10%?
10% per continent of the leaderboard. The elite leaderboard. So, that includes from 16 to 54.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean that opens. Yeah. So that opens a lot of. It's fortunately that's worked out really well for us that we get to make it to the next stage. So the next stage is what I'm actually thinking of as the second part of the Open, and making sure that we're starting to progress or starting our training to revolve around that part there as well. And I've spoken to Nick.
I imagine it to be something like the age group. I imagine it to be something like the age group online qualifier.
Yeah.
On the next stage, and the scores are all reset.
Yeah. And that's what I'm interested to see as well. If the scores reset, that will change a lot of things as well. That'll then determine how hard we push in the first stage, given that, our short transition into the first part of the Open. What I am conscious of is, for us, what we got to work out is what continent we fall under, being Australian citizens living in the US, working out of the US. Does that make us eligible for the States, or do we have to then find our way back in Australia?
No, it's citizenship.
Okay, so we're not citizens.
You're not going to be the semifinals will be in Australia probably.
Okay, so as long as the competition now is obviously online, so that will help us. But when it goes to the regional / sanctionals, I don't know where we are there in that category either. So, do you know? I feel like I'm learning a lot from you. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, what I heard from I actually received the rule book prior to the world, right? Because I had to write the subject, or write a subject about it.
Yeah.
So it's all based on your citizenship. So if you're from Australia, you're going to compete in the Oceania continent.
Yeah.
So everything is related there. So the 10% of the athletes there, that includes Tia, will compete everything. The quarterfinal, it's all related to your continent from where you have your citizenship.
Okay, so will that then, I love this. So will that mean we have to fly back to Australia to compete there for the regional/section event, or can we compete in the US?
I think you're going to have to fly back to Australia to compete there.
Okay, well so knowing all this, that makes it very interesting. Hopefully the COVID period opens up. Is forgotten about, so we don't have to do a quarantine for 2 weeks and then start thinking about all those logistics. The positive is if that's the case, I'm a lot more pleased knowing that Alec, Brooke, Tia, and Matt aren't going to be in the same sanction event or /regional. So that allows us to then have a diverse field. So there's positives and there's cons. Obviously, logistics and transportation for Tia and I to get to Australia is certainly a lot harder. However, it allows us to have more horses in the race, so to speak.
Yeah.
Wow, this is interesting.
That is true. Now I have two personal questions. I hope you don't mind.
Yep, let's hear it.
And it's my last two questions, so I can leave you to do your work. It's Saturday morning there. My first question is, when I see you at the documentaries or during the online part of the CrossFit Games, and they focus on you, you always seem more tense and nervous than the athletes.
Yeah.
How hard it is for you? Your heart, your emotions when they are competing, because you seem really nervous.
Yeah. I feel that. How do I answer this? So I feel like my job as a coach changes when we're in the competition. It goes from a coach to being their bag boy, so to speak, and their support network. And I'm very confident when it comes to warming up, preparing them. But as soon as they're on the stage, before it's 3, 2, 1, that's when they're out of sight. I'm a different person. I am what you see on the camera. But my objective when I am coaching, being their bag boy at the event, is that I'm trying to think about all the external factors for them, so they don't have to think about it. Like I'm generally trying to think about transportation, hydration, nutrition, even their recovery protocols. I'm thinking about their warm-up protocols. I'm thinking about even the small things of interacting with the camera. Sometimes what you don't see is that we shunt or we just tell the camera, not right now, like the timing is not right. Maybe after the event, can you come back and ask those questions? And fortunately, they're fantastic at that, and they're professional. They understand. And I'm thinking about just interacting on how we're going to get through the arena with minimal interaction. So, involving all that stuff. And that's not just to be a prick. That's just more so that these guys can dedicate or focus solely on what they've trained for. And I'm sure all the spectators and the fans realize this and appreciate that, is that we want them to perform at their optimal best when it goes 3, 2, 1 and go. So I'm just trying to make sure that I can give everybody give the athletes that opportunity to succeed. And so that, for me, I'm always thinking about what's next or what's happening around the surroundings. But as soon as they're on the field, I feel helpless. And that's when I feel nervous. Like, normally I'm the coach where I'm right next to them and I can just go, hey, do this, do that, or cheer them or create an environment where they feel confident or safe. But then I'm a couple rows back, or I'm watching on a TV and I just feel like helpless, sweaty hands, and heart rate's elevated. And I think that's the love of the sport as well. Like, I genuinely love seeing these guys perform, and I'm just nervous, just like any other fan.
Yeah, I was not even saying before the competition or around, or like when you're moving towards the field. I was thinking more when 3, 2, 1 go starts, and you can see you like really tense, like an actual fan, and that's something impressive, because Tia and Matt always seem so calm and focused and concentrated, and that really caught my attention during the online part for the CrossFit Games, when I saw the videos of Matt competing and Tia competing, and you were by their sides watching them, and you were like I don't know, you were about to have a heart attack as nervous, and that was really impressive. Like you became a fan because you felt helpless. There's nothing you can do. All your work was already done, right?
Exactly, Sergio. That's exactly how I think of it as well. Like I feel as we lead into the competition, I think it's like 7 days out. The not the roles, but I feel like I'm sort of pushing them, going, right, it's in your hands now. You know, we've done the work, we've dug the trenches. You guys are prepared. It's now for you guys to execute. And knowing what they've invested, seeing on a day-to-day scale, every day, seeing them guys go dark on rowing intervals, pushing themselves, doing the leg training, just like any other athlete. I just want them to succeed, or selfishly want them to get the results that I've seen them put in. So I'm on the sides just going, come on, get what you deserve. And I think that's where the nerves or the excitement or the energy or the sweaty palms come into play.
Okay, and my final question is, what's next for Shane Orr? I mean, what are your goals in life? I mean, you already trained the best 2 athletes in the world. What else do you want in life?
I appreciate it. I think that's a good question. As a coach, and I'm sure many and yourself can relate, we put a lot of energy in what we can do will service for other people. And it's not too often, it's not often enough I check in and see what I can do for myself. And I think some of the things that come to my mind is, obviously, again, I want to help both those guys succeed, and not these guys now. I've got a bigger team now. I want to help our team, the brand, proven, exceed or develop. And when I say develop, again, I'm trying to remove results. I'm trying to then just create an environment of what we've done and recreate that. And that's where we're focusing on individual performance, looking at what we've done and trying to grow from there. And I'm looking at it from a business model as well. Like, this is where we're at now. What can we do to get ourselves here? I'm not comparing ourselves to the amazing brands that are already existing in the CrossFit space, like, your Noble and your Rogue and stuff like that. I'm really focused on what we can do from this point to get to that point, and I'm fixated on that. But on a personal level, as a coaching level, I obviously want to help and divest a lot more energy and time into the bobsled space. But I also want to now, what I learned, I hope I'm answering this. What I learned in 2016 from the CrossFit Games was when we were juggling 2 events. We're juggling the CrossFit Games and the Olympics. I felt that I didn't do enough. And I want to make sure that when we set ourselves up for this year's season, I want to make sure that I'm more prepared and I give Tia more of a better opportunity to succeed at both sports. Like we're going to juggle between the Olympics and we're going to juggle between the CrossFit Games. I want to make sure that this time next year, when we're having a chat again, that I'm proud to turn around and say that we did absolutely everything we could to make sure that this season was phenomenal. Yeah.
Okay. Shane, once again, thank you so much for this interview. It was, for me, amazing. I'm really excited about it. And I hope everybody who listens to us later on will be also. Thank you so much for your time in South Korea, and have better luck with the heating.
Yeah, thank you for that. Guys, I also want to thank you guys as well. Thanks for your time and your complete understanding and your flexibility as well. I think what you guys are doing for the community is phenomenal. I think it's fantastic to hear the reach you guys have done. I've listened to some of the podcasts leading into this one. I think you guys do a fantastic job. And I know I speak for many, and we're just so proud to be a part of what you guys are creating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Okay,
thanks, guys.
Now, let me just speak in Portuguese. Então, gente, esse foi o Shane Orr. Ele, coach da Tia, do Matt, do Alec, da Brooke. Falamos sobre muitas coisas. Espero que vocês tenham gostado aí da nossa entrevista. Eu, com certeza, amei. Estou muito agradecido. E a gente se vê numa próxima. Até mais. So, now I think we're through. Ricardo thought we would be through prior, but I want to get a picture with you.
Yeah. Let's do this. I don't know how we do it, but.
Okay, now. Okay. Just let me, so I can put